Chapter 29-27. What if one of the venom is first cured, then the second venom? Yiqing Luo recalled what Miao Ji said earlier. Miao Ji's expression was grave. What I want to tell you is this. These two kinds of venom that counter each other when planted on the same host, there are only two ways to cure the venom. Cure two venom at the same time, everyone will be happy. The second way is to cure the love venom first, then the centrifugal force venom. She raised her hand and pointed at the blood-red patch on Zhou Xian's wrist, which looked like a vine. Perhaps it's because his feelings and love towards you are too deep, so it allowed the love worm in his body to absorb the nourishment from his love and grew very quickly. If you want to cure one venom separately, then you can only cure the love venom first. Love venom. Yiqing Luo muttered these two words as she frowned. You can also cure the love venom first. Why are you hesitating? Is it because there's still some danger? You should be clear about the nurturing of venom. Every venom from the larvae will develop the habit of fighting with other venom to survive. Love venom and centrifugal force venom are the same. Moreover, these are two kinds of venom that counter each other. Now the Overlord is safe and sound. Half of the reason is because of the Overlord's power. The other half reason is these two venom, mutually defending each other's territory, accumulating power and waiting for a chance. This is also why the Overlord would be controlled by the venom from time to time. One moment he was poisoned by the love venom and had deep feelings for you, the next moment the centrifugal force venom would act up. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted when she heard that, as her body slumped down powerlessly. Although he knew that Yiqing Luo should have already guessed the consequences of curing one of the venom. But Miao Ji still explained in detail. Once the love venom is cured, the centrifugal force venom in the Overlord's body will completely control the Overlord. Without the obstruction of the love venom, the centrifugal force venom's influence on the Overlord will far exceed what it is now. For example, he is not controlled by the centrifugal force venom, other than forgetting you, but the love from his soul towards you will still make him close to you. But if only the centrifugal force venom is left to control him, there's a possibility that not only will he forget you, he will also kill you personally. By the time Miao Ji finished her last sentence, her expression had turned serious. Her eyes were burning as she looked straight into Yiqing Luo's eyes. There's still the worst possibility. The Overlord can't bear to kill you and will go against the centrifugal worm, causing the centrifugal worm to go berserk and directly swallow the Overlord, turning the Overlord into a puppet. Puppet. Yiqing Luo's body stiffened suddenly. Although Lord Dizun is not an ordinary person and his body is also different from ordinary people, his reaction to being poisoned by the goo is also different from ordinary people. Miao Ji looked at her fixedly. But I estimate that the Overlord only has a 20% chance of surviving the backlash of the venomous centrifugal goo. No. This method is too risky. Yiqing Luo shook her head without hesitation. 20% was too low. Moreover, it was just an estimate. Miao Ji had an expression of, I knew you wouldn't agree. So, this is also the reason why I can't make up my mind to help the Overlord get rid of the curse before I ascend to the upper realm. Other than that, is there no other way? Yiqing Luo asked hoarsely. Chapter 29-28. If you feel that this method is too risky, then you can only let Yi search the Saintess Pavilion alone for a few more days to find a way to cure the two kinds of insect poisons at the same time. It is too risky to resolve the loaf goo first. Miao Yi, who had been silent all this while, held onto Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Qing Luo, I promise you that even if my aunt ascends to the upper realm, I alone will definitely help the Overlord find a way to cure the goo, absolutely. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes drooped, her tone was filled with unspeakable fear. It's not that I don't believe you, but I'm worried there's not enough time. The two types of venom in Zhou Xian's body switched between different modes from time to time. As time dragged on, she was unable to predict how much damage it would cause to Zhou Xian's body. This was one of the reasons. Secondly, she had already stayed in the northern wave continent for a long time. In the west continent, Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing were still waiting for them to bring people back to suppress the poison from the upper realm for Long Yunzhan. Jun Qingwu's pearl could only sustain Long Yunzhan for 3 months. 3 months had passed. Long Yunzhan would die because of the venomous insects of the upper realm. Or would he continue to be influenced by the upper realm's goo worms and attack his own brothers? All of this was unknown. There were still people waiting for her to return to the West Continent. Both sides were people who were very important to her. She didn't want to see anything happen to either side. The three people in the room were silent and the atmosphere was oppressive. Suddenly, a hoarse and low voice sounded out indifferently. "Do it, release the love parasite." This voice caused the three of them to freeze for a moment. Yiqing Luo was the first to regain her senses as she pounced to the bedside and reached out to hold Diamo Xian's hand. "Ah Xian, you're awake." Her fingers had just touched Diamo Xian. Diamo Xian's breathing suddenly turned heavy. His handsome face had turned pale. However, Diamo Xian did not reveal it. Instead, he held her little hand. A noble and elegant smile bloomed from his thin lips. No matter how Diamo Xian tried to conceal it, Yiqing Luo could tell that her touch on him had once again caused the centrifugal force goo in his body to become agitated. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as she withdrew her hand from Diamo Xian's hand and took a few steps back. They didn't even dare to approach him. "Yiqing Luo." Diamo Xian frowned slightly. His voice was slightly weak due to the agitation of the centrifugal worm. "Come here." Yiqing Luo didn't move. "Don't force yourself, I don't want to see you in so much pain. I told you to come here, so come here." Diamo Xian lifted his eyelids and his long eyelashes formed a silhouette above his eye sockets, making that pair of peach blossom eyes of his, added some lustrous luster. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly and shook her head stubbornly with a pale face. Diamo Xian's brows creased even more tightly. He moved his hand as if he wanted to get up. But it also seemed to involve something else, causing his brows to furrow into several wrinkles. He lay back on the bed. Yiqing Luo took a few steps forward, her eyes filled with anxiety. "Ah Xian, what's wrong? Where does it hurt?" She couldn't imagine. How painful was the erosion and agitation of the centrifugal goo. That was why Diamo Xian, who had always been unperturbed, revealed such an expression? One must know that Diamo Xian was once bleeding all over and yet his expression didn't change, pretending that nothing had happened and flirted with her. Chapter 29-29. Even before he was poisoned. When he came back from the upper realm, he had internal injuries and his power was greatly reduced. He didn't show any signs of it. But now, because of the pain, his face turned pale. How painful was it to make Diamo Xian's expression change? The minute Yiqing Luo got near, she abruptly halted her footsteps. "Don't worry, I'm here." Miao Yi grabbed Yiqing Luo's hand. "Before the centrifugal worm stabilizes, don't get close to him." Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened by the bedside. She blinked hard, suppressing the sourness in her eyes as she stared intently at Diamo Xian. Miao Ji saw that Diamo Xian's expression was getting worse. She frowned and turned back to look at Yiqing Luo. "I know the Overlord doesn't like to be touched by others, but under the current situation, I can only choose to be disrespectful to the Overlord. If the Overlord is angry, please help me plead for leniency." Saying that, Miao Ji didn't wait for Yiqing Luo's reply. She directly raised her finger and bit it hard. Following that, she raised Diamo Xian's arm and pressed the blood that was oozing out from her fingertip onto that squirming blood-colored vine. Bright red blood instantly spread on Diamo Xian's arm. Miao Ji muttered something softly. A ray of light brushed past. That drop of blood merged into the blood-colored vine. Miao Ji retracted her hand and wiped the sweat off her forehead. Sacred Lady's blood can temporarily suppress the centrifugal worm for a moment. After the whole house is filled with the poison, if the centrifugal worm is still unable to be stabilized, I have no other way. After Miao Ji's drop of blood merged into Diamo Xian's arm, Diamo Xian's tightly knitted brows indeed eased up a little. "Aunt Miao, is there really no other way? If you can stay in Nirvana realm for a few more days, will you be able to think of a way?" Yiqing Luo's hand pressed against her heart. Her heart felt like it was clenched together, hurting terribly. Miao Ji weakly closed her eyes. "Staying for a day is the most lenient. If I stay any longer, I'm worried. Heavenly punishment will befall upon the Miao tribe." This was, after all, the Miao tribe's ancestral rule. If she didn't abide by this rule, if the heavenly punishment was only for her, it would be easy to deal with it. What he was afraid of was the punishment from the heavens would befall on the Miao people. Just one goo poison and one goo poison antidote. Leaning against the headboard, the man who had calmed down spoke again. That cold voice was impossible to ignore. She could no longer ignore what he had said before. No. Yiqing Luo's voice was tense, her fingers clenched into a fist. This is too risky, your body is originally in the upper third. Her voice paused and she stopped herself from saying anything. She bit her lower lip hard. Even if she didn't finish her sentence. Zhou Xian understood as well. He was afraid that this girl knew that his body had suffered a serious internal injury when he was in the upper realm. He raised his eyelids and looked at the young girl who was standing by the bed. Her eyes were filled with worry, but she didn't dare to approach him. The girl stood there, clenching her fists tightly. Zhou Xian's brows creased as he recalled that not too long ago in the forest, because she was worried about old man Tsang, her palm had been imprinted with numerous blood scars. Now she was abusing herself again. Didn't she know how to protect her own hand? A girl's hand was very important. Chapter 29:30. Zhou Xian listened to her slightly sobbing voice and only felt a dense stinging pain assaulting his heart. Immediately following that was the agitation of the centrifugal force goo. He clenched his fists as he endured the discomfort. His gaze met the young lady's slightly reddened eyes and those wet lashes. That trembling feeling in his chest grew stronger. He closed his deep peach blossom eyes and when he opened them again, it was already piercingly cold. He didn't look at the young lady but looked sideways at Miaoji calmly. After removing the love goo, what will happen to me? And you guys, what do you intend to do? If you successfully remove the love goo, you will immediately be controlled by the centrifugal force goo. Miaoji subconsciously blurted out when she was stared at by Zhou Xian. But there is also a possibility that you still retain your own consciousness. But if you are unable to withstand against the centrifugal force goo, then there is a huge possibility that you will be devoured by the centrifugal force goo. Zhou Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes as he went into deep thoughts. Miaoji looked at Zhou Xian's perfectly handsome side profile. The most important thing is, I only have the time to help you remove the love goo, and following that, the removal of the centrifugal force goo will be controlled by Yi. Which meant, the most difficult part was for Miao Yi to remove the goo. Yiqing Luo's body tensed up. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Miao Yi. Miao Yi's innate talent was right there. But after all, Miao Yi's experience in dealing with goo worms was not as good as Miao Ji. Moreover, no matter if it was the centrifugal force goo or the love goo, they were all ancient goo skills passed down by the Miao tribe. Innate talent. Could it really replace experience? Miao Yi. The man suddenly opened his mouth. This name made Miao Yi's emotions tensed up as she instinctively straightened her back and responded in a serious manner. Here. Do you have confidence? Zhou Xian looked at Miao Yi calmly as his eyes were deep but without any pressure. Miao Yi was stunned as she turned her gaze towards Miao Ji. Zhou Xian's attitude was already very obvious. Everything depended on the thoughts of the two of them. Miao Ji pondered for a moment and nodded slightly. Ever since I was rummaging through the voodoo manuals about love voodoo and centrifugal voodoo in the Saintess Pavilion, I have been estimating the inference of this method. In fact, from the bottom of my heart I agree with this method. As she said that, she looked at Yiqing Luo, who was standing stiffly by the side. Her eyes had already turned red, as though she was suppressing her emotions. Miao Ji sighed softly. We can't guarantee that we will be able to find such a book in the Saintess Pavilion. After all, in the past 4 years, I have not seen any similar ancient books in the Saintess Pavilion. Although this method of curing the goo is very dangerous. But, with Lord Dizun's physique and willpower, perhaps this method is faster and safer. Miao Jiji had thought it through before she said what she said. She had to admit that she did have some selfish motives. After all, she was about to ascend to the upper realm. Her only relative remained in the Miao tribe. Although from the looks of it now, Yiqing Luo and Miao Yi's relationship was rather close. However, it was inevitable that there would be other changes due to certain reasons in the future. Before she ascended, she would try her best to cure the overlord of the goo. If she succeeded, then she would be able to leave the Nirvana realm with peace of mind. She was gambling. Gambling on the overlord's power. Gambling on the overlord's mysteriousness and nobility. Gambling on the overlord absolutely not being controlled by a small centrifugal voodoo. Most importantly. Chapter 29:31. I feel I can do it. Miao Yi's voice rang, filled with infinite determination. She walked towards Yiqing Luo as her arms wrapped around Yiqing Luo's trembling shoulders, speaking word by word. I also want to do something for you for the Overlord. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as she lowered her head. Her silence seemed to be rejecting Miao Yi, and also seemed to be rejecting the risky idea which they suggested. Miao Yi opened her mouth as she wanted to say something. But looking at Yiqing Luo's fine hair, that pair of reddened eyes, she shut her mouth as she sighed as her hands slid down from Yiqing Luo's shoulders. Lil Luo, a low husky sexy voice called out which made Yiqing Luo's heart tremble. A familiar nickname. That was the nickname which belonged to Zhou Xian alone, called. She raised her head abruptly as her eyes filled with joy. Following that, at the next moment her face crashed into a thick embrace. Her nostrils were filled with the familiar sandalwood scent. Her face was scorched by the scorching temperature. She could faintly hear the man's heartbeat from his chest. For a moment the entire room seemed to have quietened down. Yiqing Luo was only in a daze for a moment, as she quickly recalled the centrifugal worm in Zhou Xian's body, as she struggled anxiously, trying to move her body away. She was afraid of too much touch. It would only make Zhou Xian more painful. However, before she could move, a voice suddenly rang out. A large palm was pressed against the back of her head. The man's muscular arm encircled her petite body tightly. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo spoke in a trembling voice. Being hugged too tightly by the man, she didn't dare to struggle too much, worried that it would cause him discomfort. Lil Luo, be good, listen to me. The man's voice was very deep, as though a melodious incantation, making Yiqing Luo's head had a feeling of dizziness. He stuck close to her ear. That cold and aloof face at this moment was like the melting of the winter snow, covered with warmth. Believe me and believe them. Yiqing Luo raised her head from his embrace. What she met was the man's deep peach blossom eyes. His thin lips were frivolous as his slightly pale handsome face revealed a tinge of wickedness. Yiqing Luo looked at his face in a daze. The man had already bent his head and kissed her lips. As their lips touched, his voice drifted into her ears. Lil Luo, I don't want to forget you again. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. Her long curly eyelashes trembled violently a few times. In her enchanting eyes, a watery light slowly spread. The man's lips parted from hers. On his handsome face, there was an extremely indifferent aura. But the way he looked at her was very warm. Just like in the past. However, compared to the past, it lacked that little bit of feeling. I don't want to forget you again. This sentence in Yiqing Luo's heart was like a densely packed large net, enveloping her within. She stared at Zhou Xian's cold face. Sweat was dripping from his forehead. Even if he tried his best to endure it, knowing Zhou Xian, she could tell. At this moment, Zhou Xian was using all his strength to fight against the centrifugal venom in his body. It was obvious that the closer he was to her, the more he was tempted by her business. The more the centrifugal heart goo would go berserk. But Zhou Xian still used his own warmth to soothe her worries. Yiqing Luo shut her eyes weakly. The corners of her eyes sparkled. When she opened her eyes again, her pink lips moved as her hoarse voice spat out a word, all right. In the end, she still chose to compromise. Chapter 29:32. After Yiqing Luo spat out this word, she speedily stood up straight and left Zhou Xian's embrace. He stepped back. He turned around and straightened his back. His hands were clenched into fists. The young lady's departure made Zhou Xian's heart empty for a moment. However, the unbearable pain in his body lessened a little. His deep peach blossom eyes stared deeply at the girl's slender back. He could see that the girl's delicate body was trembling under her forbearance. He frowned and deliberately kept his voice calm and a little hoarse. There's not much time. Let's start now. The girl's body stiffened for a moment. Several times his clenched fists unclenched. He seemed to want to turn his head and stop her. But in the next instant he curled his fingers again. Miaoji took a look at Yiqing Luo and then looked at Zhou Xian as she helplessly sighed. She shook her head and walked to the bedside. Indeed, there isn't much time left. If you don't have any questions, I can start at any time. Zhou Xian didn't say a word, but only raised his eyes and looked at Miaoji indifferently. Miaoji understood and nodded. Then let's move to another place first. During the process of curing the curse, we must not allow any accidents or disturbances. As she spoke, she called for Qiqi to come over and help. The Saintess yard is not absolutely safe, and the equipment to cure the goo is not complete. Then where is the safest place? Yiqing Luo heard that and immediately turned around, asking nervously. Miao Ji and Miao Yi carefully helped Zhou Xian onto Qiqi's back before answering, "Let's go to my room first." In Miao Ji's room, there was a secret passage that only the holy maiden of the Miao tribe knew about. It was a secret room used by generations of saintesses of the Miao tribe to research goo worms. Even the elders of the Miao tribe did not know about this secret chamber. Yiqing Luo could be said to be the first person other than the Miao tribe's saintess who knew about this secret tunnel and had even walked into this secret tunnel. In the secret tunnel there were all sorts of tools for dispelling goo and making goo. Miao Ji asked Qiqi to carry Zhou Xian to the stone bed at the side. Around the stone bed, there were 2 or 3 very thin branches. Above the buds were evenly distributed goo worms that were squirming non-stop. It was black like a grain. These are not harmful goo worms. Miao Ji saw that Yiqing Luo's gaze was fixated on those few shoots and opened her mouth to explain. These goo worms can strengthen the overlord's willpower, allowing him to maintain his consciousness. Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. She didn't know much about the goo poison. He could only pin his hopes on Miao Ji and Miao Yi. Miao Yi was already quickly fiddling with the tools in the secret room. About the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. Miao Yi called out to Miao Ji, "Aunt, that's enough." Miao Ji nodded slightly and walked towards the stone bed. Yiqing Luo followed closely behind. "I don't have much time left. I will do my best to remove the love goo for Lord Dizun within this limited time." Miao Ji glanced sideways at Yiqing Luo's direction, her eyes looking at her seriously and solemnly. Her voice was unprecedentedly heavy. "After the love goo is taken out, Yi will immediately take over and remove the centrifugal goo." Yiqing Luo's face turned pale. No sound came from her throat. Miao Ji and Miao Yi exchanged glances, knowing that Yiqing Luo's current feelings were extremely complicated. However, time waits for no man. Chapter 29:33. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids. Under her slightly frowning brows, there wasn't a shred of the usual radiance in her eyes, as it seemed extremely dull. Even though they were separated by a distance, Miao Ji could feel a gust of cold wind from Yiqing Luo. Miao Ji's throat turned dry. "Qing Luo?" She opened her mouth to call her name instead of Yiqing Luo. This also expressed her attitude. "You must succeed." Yiqing Luo slowly moved her lips as she opened her mouth with difficulty. Her voice was hoarse. Miao Ji clenched her fists tightly as she gave her a comforting smile. "I will." Yiqing Luo stood there. Her beautiful face was calm and composed, not a hint of emotion could be seen. Under the illumination of the luminous pearl under the dazzling light, that face looked a little blurry and couldn't be seen clearly. But Miao Ji and Miao Yi could feel the thick pressure from Yiqing Luo. "You guys can start, don't bother about me, I'll just stay here and watch." "Accompany him." Yiqing Luo closed her eyes, which were filled with worry. "Qing Luo, you can't stay in the secret tunnel." Miao Ji shook her head as she looked at her seriously. "The love goo's affection target is you, the centrifugal force goo's affection target is also you. If you stay here it will only cause the goo worm to become agitated." Yiqing Luo suddenly opened her eyes. The person who was lying on the stone bed receiving the antidote was the man she only loved. She couldn't give him warm companionship when he was in pain. Now, when he was antidoting the goo, she couldn't even stay by his side? The love goo has been fed by the overlord's love towards you, and it has already grown up in his body. If you stay, your scent and presence is still there. There is a possibility that it will speed up the growth of the love goo. Not to mention the reaction of the centrifugal force goo towards you. You must know that the love goo has not moved for so long, allowing the centrifugal force goo to corrode the overlord's body, allowing the overlord to maintain the state of the centrifugal force goo. This is to deplete the centrifugal force goo's energy and annihilate it in one go. Miao Ji could tell Yiqing Luo's reluctance as she explained helplessly. "Moreover, after I successfully remove the love worm from the overlord's body, the centrifugal force worm will then completely control the overlord. If you are here with Lord Dizun's willpower, he might not be able to control the centrifugal force goo. If he sees you and wants to kill you, She paused for a moment and her voice became serious. Not only will His Majesty fail to remove the curse, but you, and all of us will most likely be killed, by His Majesty. Miao Ji said the last two words very slowly. But it was also extremely clear. Is that so? She spoke in a hoarse voice. Her tensed body slowly slumped down weakly. She did not say another word. Instead he turned around and walked toward the door of the secret chamber. Every step he took was like stepping on thorns. The bright light elongated her silhouette. It made her slender figure look extremely lonely. Looking at the figure disappearing at the door, he could feel that desolate and helpless aura. Miao Ji and Miao Yi looked at each other again and saw determination and seriousness in each other's eyes. They would definitely try their best, helping the overlord to remove the goo successfully. She walked out of the secret chamber. Yiqing Luo felt as though all the energy in her body had been sucked out as she leaned against the wall and laid limply on the ground. The wall was icy cold. Chapter 29:34. Her head was leaning against the wall, raised high. Her eyes were tightly shut and her long eyelashes trembled from time to time. Her heart was filled with anxiety, uneasiness and heartache. Lin Mengya had always liked to arrange everything in an orderly manner. But this time she didn't dare to think about it. The result of failing to cure the venom. Her mind was filled with Zhou Xian's peerless face. He smiled at her. His eyes were warm as if carrying thousands of spring water. Suddenly, something gently tugged at the corner of her clothes. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. A furry little head was already in her arms. That pure and flawless head was reflected in Yiqing Luo's pupils from a close distance. Chi-Chi. She spoke in a hoarse voice. The little thing in her arms was Chi-Chi, who had turned into a kitten size after carrying Zhou Xian to the stone bed. Chi-Chi's little body curled up in Yiqing Luo's arms, raised its little head and used its soft pink tongue to gently lick Yiqing Luo's cheek. Its furry little head rubbed against Yiqing Luo's face in a flattering manner. The warm touch made Yiqing Luo's icy cold body had a trace of warmth. Master, don't worry about the overlord, he is so powerful, he will be fine. Chi-Chi's childish voice seemed to have a healing ability. Yiqing Luo hugged it tightly. Chi-Chi rubbed its head again. Chi-Chi can feel that the overlord loves Master very very much more than Chi-Chi loves Master, so the overlord will not be willing to part with Master, he will not let anything happen to himself. The childish words slowly soothed Yiqing Luo's restless and worried heart. Chi-Chi and Yiqing Luo had a blood pact. Naturally, it could clearly feel the change in its master's emotions. Seeing Yiqing Luo's emotions stabilized, Chi-Chi's tone became cheerful. Master must believe in the overlord just like Chi-Chi believes in Master. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. There seemed to be some emotions surging in her chest. Her pupils shrank slightly as she stared blankly ahead. She seemed to have thought of something and was immersed in that memory. Believe in Zhou Xian. Believe in the decision he made. She believed that he would not bear to leave her. That was right. The only thing she could do now was to believe. Chi-Chi will always accompany Master. Chi-Chi saw that Yiqing Luo's eyes had finally regained its spirit and immediately licked Yiqing Luo's cheek. Yiqing Luo carried Chi-Chi and gently patted its head. I can't stay in the secret room, it will be contaminated with my scent. She stood up and said, I can't be by Xian's side when he's dealing with the goo, but Chi-Chi, you have to protect him for me. Chi-Chi's wagging tail immediately stopped. Among my companions, Shiju's strength is insufficient, and his spiritual wisdom has yet to be unlocked. Qi Yan's temperament is irritable and he gets angry easily. Only you can protect Xian for me. Yiqing Luo gently rubbed its little head. Between you and me we can sense each other's dangerous aura, so you stay here to watch over Xian. If anything really happens I can rush over. Chi-Chi was convinced and its two furry little ears drooped down helplessly. Yiqing Luo put down Chi-Chi and her vision fell onto the tightly shut door of the secret chamber, staring at it for some time. Chapter 29:35. The blood-red profound phoenix ring looked especially sparkling in her fair hand. Vaguely, one could see that the red jade was flashing with a fiery red glow, as if a phoenix was about to fly away. Master. Chi-Chi's eyes widened. This is a gift from Dizun. This is a token of our love. Yiqing Luo passed the profound phoenix ring to Chi-Chi. This is what he gave me when I first met him. Chi-Chi did not take it. How can Master take off such an important thing? I'm worried about Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and looked at the profound phoenix ring in her palm. Her gaze turned gentle as though she was looking at Zhou Xian through the profound phoenix ring. She pursed her lips and revealed a smile that could not be considered a smile. No one can predict what will happen after the love parasite is taken out. If something unexpected happens, hand the profound phoenix ring to him. As she spoke, she could not help but smile. This is a token of our love. Even if the heart separation goo controls him, he will definitely remember my memories after seeing the profound phoenix ring. This is just a precaution. With the profound phoenix ring, at least she would be able to understand Zhou Xian's condition at any time. Chi raised her head and stared at Yiqing Luo for a long time. That pair of sparkling tiger eyes blinked. Finally, it pouted and said in a childish voice, Chi will protect Master's profound phoenix ring with my life. It opened its mouth and swallowed the profound phoenix ring that looked like a phoenix spreading its wings. Yiqing Luo rubbed its soft fur. I'll leave Zhou Xian to you. After Yiqing Luo left the Sacred Maiden Institute, she directly headed towards the courtyard which the Miao tribe had arranged for Yan Xiaoyi and the others. Her mind was filled with Zhou Xian. He had to find something else to distract himself. Just as Yiqing Luo turned the corner, her figure disappeared for about half an incense's time. In a dark corner more than 10 meters away from the Saintess courtyard, a man in Miao costume walked out. That man's strength was obviously not low. In just a few breaths, the man's figure had already disappeared from the Saintess courtyard. It was as if they had never appeared before. In the northwest of the Miao tribe, there was a dignified and luxurious courtyard. The entire courtyard was extremely quiet. There was not the slightest sound or presence of a human. In this strange atmosphere, suddenly a black figure appeared in the courtyard. That figure quickly turned into a few afterimages, moving quickly within the courtyard with familiarity. Soon, it stopped in a dark room in a secluded corner of the courtyard. With a creak, the door opened. An old man dressed in white Miao attire came face to face with the black shadow. The old man was overjoyed. He immediately turned around and returned to his room. The black shadow followed closely behind. The moment the door closed, the black shadow pressed one hand on his chest, which was the standard Miao tribe etiquette. I've been guarding outside the Sacred Maiden Institute for a full 4 hours and only saw Yiqing Luo leaving the Sacred Maiden Institute alone, and her mood was obviously downcast. This man was none other than the man who had appeared outside the Saintess courtyard. The man's voice was very serious. I noticed that Yiqing Luo's eyes were slightly red as if she had cried. After Yiqing Luo left the courtyard, I still haven't seen the Sacred Maiden and the former Sacred Maiden. Chapter 2936. The elderly man's hand knocked on the table a few times. It's rumored that the Overlord dotes on Yiqing Luo to the core. Yiqing Luo left the Sacred Maiden Institute alone. Did she manage to see the Overlord? The man shook his head. No. The old man's frown deepened. With his other hand, he propped himself up on the chair and stroked his white beard. The Saintess, the former Saintess, and the Supreme God, all three of them disappeared at the same time. The old man muttered something. Suddenly, his ruthless eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth curled up into an extremely evil smile. You now remove the first-class male attendant beside me and go to the Holy Maiden Institute. Tell them that I have an important matter to discuss with the Holy Maiden. The man bowed his head respectfully. Yes. The man quickly left the room. By the time the man returned to the old man, half an hour had already passed. How is it? The old man asked anxiously. The man said concisely, a first-class male attendant wishes to see the Saintess, but he was stopped by the guards of the Saintess Institute. After the Holy Lady's guard went to report, she said that because the Holy Lady had obtained the inheritance of the King of Venomous Worms, she needed to cultivate in seclusion to absorb the power of venomous worms from the King of Venomous Worms, so she would not see her for the time being. Where is the former Holy Maiden? The old man was not angered by Miao Yi's refusal. Instead, a smile appeared on his face. The guard of the Saintess said that because the former Saintess had just reunited with the Saintess had to go into seclusion. The former Saintess wanted to take advantage of the final moments before her ascension to accompany the Saintess and protect her. Thus, she rejected Elder's request to see her. The old man nodded thoughtfully. Continue to guard the Saint Lady Institute. If you see the Saint Lady, the former Saint Lady, or His Majesty, inform me immediately. Yes. As soon as the man finished speaking, he turned into an afterimage and disappeared from the room. Only the old man was left in the room. The old man's sinister eyes still narrowed slightly. His face was filled with a sinister smile. He seemed to be calculating something. After sitting for a while, the old man's eyes lit up and he slammed the table as if he had confirmed something. Then he carefully took out a square brocade box from under the table. Looking at the old man's nervous and devout expression, Zhou Xian couldn't help but sigh. He could also guess that the brocade box was extremely important to him. The old man carefully placed the brocade box on the table. His wrinkled and slightly withered hands slowly touched the brocade box. He stared at the brocade box with a hint of madness on his face. Even his body, which was sitting on the chair, was tense and trembling because of his excitement. It was not fear. It was not fear. Instead, it was excitement. He couldn't help but smile crazily. The old man devoutly stared at the brocade box for a long time before he slowly opened it. A black mist-like aura surged out of the brocade box. Vaguely, the black aura dispersed and turned into a palm-sized object that looked like a copper mirror. What happened? It was hoarse and ear-piercing, as if it was an electric sound created using various modern sound effects. In this quiet room it was extremely strange. When the old man heard that voice, he was both delighted and respectful. It's me, I've made a new discovery and I want to tell you, speak. A cold word popped out from the copper mirror. The old man could not wait to repeat what he had said to the man just now in a concise and comprehensive manner. Chapter 2937. There was no response from the copper mirror side. The elderly seemed to be encouraged as he continued to put on an excited performance. Miao Yi doesn't know the Miao tribe's rules, that's understandable. But the former sacred maiden couldn't possibly not understand the importance of the Miao tribe's people to a sacred maiden. Generally speaking, after the new sacred maiden ascends to the position, she should be accompanied by us elders, to let the Miao tribe people know the current sacred maiden's habits. But ever since Miao Yi became the sacred maiden, she directly disappeared with the former sacred maiden. If it wasn't for some necessary reason, the former sacred maiden would absolutely not let Miao Yi take the risk of offending the entire Miao tribe people, disappearing together with Miao Yi. This time the copper mirror finally had some reaction. What reason? Previously I wasn't on the overlord's body, so I guess. The elderly laughed coldly. The copper mirror, as black chi suddenly brightened and dimmed, floating and sinking. It was so strange that it made one's scalp go numb. Because of Miao Yi and Yi Qing Luo's relationship, Yan Xiao Yi and the others were treated as VIPs by the Miao tribe people. The courtyard where they stayed was located in the best location of the Miao tribe, with beautiful scenery. Qing Luo, Yan Xiao Yi and Xiao Jin were sitting on the stone bench in the courtyard, chatting about something. The minute they saw Yi Qing Luo walking in, Yan Xiao Yi immediately went up to welcome her. Yan Xiao Yi's vision swept a glance behind Yi Qing Luo. Where's the overlord? He's not around. Yi Qing Luo replied calmly as she walked towards the courtyard. Are the others around? Yan Xiao Yi could tell that Yi Qing Luo's mood was down as she worriedly followed her footsteps. Everyone is resting in the room. Did something happen? The overlord's goo worm in his body. After tonight I intend to leave the Miao tribe. Yi Qing Luo halted her footsteps as she interrupted Yan Xiao Yi's words. She turned around as her lips twitched slightly. If the secluded palace's people are targeting me if I continue to stay in the Miao tribe will be implicated. Secluded palace's side, are they still stirring up trouble? Yan Xiao Yi recalled that this morning, Yi Qing Luo had yet to reach the land of the Gu King as her brows creased tightly. This morning. You were blocked by the people from the Palace of Darkness? Yi Qing Luo nodded her head and didn't deny it. Although I don't have any good impression towards the Miao tribe, but after all the current sacred maiden and tribe leader are all Yi alone. We still need Yi to help Ajan suppress the Gu poison in his body so the Miao tribe definitely cannot be destroyed. When Kitty Li and the others heard Yi Qing Luo's voice, they hurriedly rushed over. Kitty Li was the first to jump into Yi Qing Luo's arms. Sister. Zhou Mo, who was laughing like a rascal, followed closely behind. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and noticed that Zhou Mo and Kitty Li came out from the same guest room. Wasn't this development a little too fast? She rubbed Kitty Li's fluffy head, raised her eyebrows and glanced sideways at Zhou Mo. From Kitty Li's eyes, Zhou Mo could tell what Yiqing Luo was trying to express as his thin lips curled into a roguish smile as his red phoenix eyes rose. As though it was responding to Yiqing Luo, expressing that he was serious towards Kitty Li. Whereas, Kitty Li, who was nestled in Yiqing Luo's arms, was filled with the excitement of meeting her own sister, totally not noticing the undercurrent surging between Yiqing Luo and Zhou Mo's gazes. Kitty Li's little head raised up as that young and tender little face was filled with excitement. Sister is leaving the Miao tribe? Kitty Li wants to stay with sister too. Chapter 2938. Yiqing Luo wanted to leave the Miao tribe. The others naturally had to leave together with Yiqing Luo. After a short while, everyone decided on a time. At noon tomorrow he would bid farewell to the Miao tribe and return to the western continent. Kitty Li scratched the 2 ears on the top of her head. Big sister, what about brother-in-law Dizun? Isn't Dizun brother-in-law coming with us? He will come back tomorrow and go with us. Yiqing Luo intentionally avoided herself, not thinking about Dmo Xian's matters in detail, only giving a slight smile as she replied. How could the others not see the reluctance in Yiqing Luo's smile? He could roughly guess that it was related to the venom in Dmo Xian's body. Yiqing Luo didn't want to talk about it. Naturally, they wouldn't go out of their way to ask. However, Kitty Li had always been carefree and rarely thought too deeply about things. Kitty Li had only sensed through the contract between her and Yiqing Luo that Yiqing Luo wasn't in a good mood at this moment, so her expression turned bitter as she hugged Yiqing Luo's waist tightly, speaking out softly. Sister, why does Kitty sense that you're very unhappy? Every time I mention brother-in-law Dizun I get upset. Is it because brother-in-law Dizun? She had yet to finish her words. His body was pulled back by a strong force. Kitty Li's petite body was forcefully pulled away from Yiqing Luo's embrace, falling into another warm embrace. Kitty Li was startled. She raised her claws and was about to scratch the man who was hugging her. Little wildcat, be good. Zhou Mo was a step ahead of her and held her slender little hand. Kitty Li glared at him. Frivolous man, can't you see that I'm not happy? Kitty wants to accompany big sister. Your little mouth, are you being disobedient again? Zhou Mo squinted his almond-shaped eyes and placed his slender fingers on Kitty Li's lips. His gaze was deep and threatening. Kitty Li's cheeks immediately turned crimson as if she had thought of something. Even the pair of straight ears on her head drooped down. Zhou Mo apparently loved this Kitty Li very much. His long arms tightened, encircling Kitty Li even tighter in his embrace. He then glanced sideways, glancing at Yiqing Luo from the corner of his eyes. Since you've decided to set off tomorrow, then rest early. It's getting late and tomorrow we still have to continue on our journey for a few days. Yiqing Luo smiled at him. She knew that Zhou Mo was trying to change the topic for her. Not mentioning Dmo Xian. At least for a period of time she would not think about Dmo Xian. If he didn't think about it, he wouldn't keep imagining the scene of Dmo Xian curing the goo. She took a deep breath and tried to keep her smile and voice calm. Alright everyone, go and rest. Make sure you're in good spirits so that we can continue our journey tomorrow. Zhou Mo carried Kitty Li, who was still crying out and hadn't had a good time with her sister, back to the room. Yan Shaoyi took a look at Yiqing Luo, her eyes filled with worry. He wanted to open his mouth to persuade Yiqing Luo, but he didn't know what to say. All along Yiqing Luo had been their leader. Regardless of the situation, he could remain calm and unruffled. He would never let anything, no matter what, affect his emotions, affect their emotions. It could be said that Yiqing Luo had always been a strong young lady who could support everything. But Yan Shaoyi felt. No matter how strong Yiqing Luo's heart was, she was still a lady after all. When Dizun was not around, as a sister she should accompany Yiqing Luo and not let Yiqing Luo's imagination run wild. But looking at Yiqing Luo's forced smile, that pair of dim but pretended to be calm eyes. Chapter 2939. If he accompanied Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo was trying to reassure her. He could only maintain this fake smile, maintaining a calm mask. To Yiqing Luo this would only make her more tired. If he didn't accompany Yiqing Luo, he was worried that Yiqing Luo would let her imagination run wild and be alone. She accompanied Yiqing Luo but was worried that when Yiqing Luo faced her, she was still suppressing her own emotions, not willing to let it out. Because he cared. Because he cared. The more worried Yan Xiaoyi was about Yiqing Luo, the more considerations she had. You and Jin Zico rest. Yiqing Luo felt Yan Xiaoyi's gaze on her, and she had just turned around when she bumped into a pair of worried eyes. Yiqing Luo's heart warmed up and her smile also warmed up a little. I should also take a good rest. These few days my emotions have been tense. As she spoke, she yawned and pretended to be sleepy. Yan Xiaoyi frowned and wanted to say something. He was interrupted by Yiqing Luo. All right, I don't want to see everyone tomorrow after we set off, with a drowsy look. Saying that, Yiqing Luo didn't give Yan Xiaoyi a chance to reply. He stretched himself and walked towards his room. Qing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi hastened her footsteps and chased up to her. Qiao Jin held her hand. Let's go back. Let her be alone for a while. Later we'll wait for an opportunity to get some spies to drink with her. Yiqing Luo wasn't lying when she said that she was sleepy. It was true exhaustion. Physically and mentally exhausted. However, no matter how tired his body was, he couldn't help it. But she still couldn't close her eyes. Once she closed her eyes, a handsome godlike face would appear in her mind. She would think of his pale face and furrowed brows as he endured the plot. She would remember his face as he lay unconscious on the stone bed. He could not control her emotions at all. She couldn't help but think of Zhou Xian. Under such circumstances, how could she sleep peacefully when she was physically and mentally exhausted? Night gradually fell. There was complete silence in the courtyard. The moonlight was like water, bringing with it a slight chill. The sky was so dark that not even the moonlight could illuminate it. Amidst the silent atmosphere, outside the courtyard, a few burning torches suddenly lit up. The torches closed in quickly. When she arrived outside the courtyard, she saw a white figure rushing into the courtyard. Miss Yi. That person's voice was not soft. Under this tranquility, it was exceptionally loud and clear. As he called out, that person had already entered the courtyard and was looking around anxiously. However, not a single shadow could be seen. Miss Yi. I have something to ask of you. That person didn't know where Yiqing Luo's room was, so naturally he didn't dare to barge in as he stood outside the courtyard, calling out loudly. What's up? Suddenly, a light voice entered the man's ears. The man was startled and turned around abruptly. On a lush tree, a girl dressed in red was leaning against the tree trunk. Her hair, which was not tied up at all, was draped over her shoulders and cascaded down like a waterfall. There was not a single star in the pitch-black night sky. However, this girl seemed to have gathered all the light. It was so dazzling that it made people raise their eyebrows. She was like a fairy in the night, exuding her endless charm. Devilish and enchanting to the extreme. The young lady glanced at the man below lazily. A white jade hand was holding a white jade wine pot, gently swaying it. Chapter 2940. That smile looked bewitching. Like a demoness who bewitched people. But on a closer look, one could see the melancholy within. Yiqing Luo stared at the person below, her brows flirtatious as she raised the wine pot and poured the fine wine into her mouth. She then recalled her lazy voice. Right, Judge Elder, what's the matter for you to come here in the middle of the night? The person below wasn't anyone else, it was the right Judge Elder. In the dark night, the young lady's charming eyes were like the stars, resplendent to the extreme. Right Judge Elder was reminded by Yiqing Luo in this way when he suddenly realized that he had almost been bewitched by a young lass. He shook his head and speedily explained his intention. Miss Yi, old Zhou and I have already followed your suggestion and used the Miao Gu seal to seal those 5 secluded palaces guards in the underground tunnel. We also found those Miao tribe guards who carried the secluded palaces guards yesterday. Speaking to this point, his expression obviously turned ugly. Indeed, as what Miss Yi said, those guards are different from usual, and even some Miao tribe guards actually developed rebellious thoughts, offending their superiors. Until now, the right Judge Elder still felt a lingering fear. Those secluded palace guards, after he and Old Zhou asked a few more questions, they directly took action and every move was extremely vicious, as though they were facing their father's murderer. They recalled what Yiqing Luo had reminded them previously. If one's heart was greedy and the darkness was too deep, they would easily be corroded by the demonic qi on these puppets, becoming a puppet controlled by the demonic qi. The left and right Judge Elders could no longer doubt the truth of Yiqing Luo's words. Those Miao tribe guards who had been completely swallowed by the demonic Qi Old Zhou and I have all killed them. Right Judge Elder's tone was obviously heavy when he said this. Yiqing Luo replied faintly. Right Judge Elder would make such a choice, and it was indeed what an elder should do. After all, by killing a few people they were protecting the entire Miao tribe. The Right Elder took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. Miss Yi, although the remaining guards have not lost their souls, it is obvious that something is wrong. Old Zhou and I acted on our own and locked them up in the woodshed. I came here especially to ask if Miss Yi has a solution? Let these guards who have not been completely corroded by the evil aura return to normal? Very difficult. Yiqing Luo lazily leaned her head against the tree branch as her eyes faintly gazed at the pitch-black sky. Towards the evil Qi on those puppets, I'm currently at a loss of what to do. The Right Elder's face turned pale and he clenched his fists. His face was full of struggle. The number of Miao tribesmen was small. Moreover, after being together for so many years, they had developed feelings for each other. If it was possible, the Right Judge Elder would try his best to keep these people alive. But if Yiqing Luo had no other way, for the future of the Miao tribe he had to harden his heart. This thought caused the Right Elder's face to turn increasingly pale. Those are the guards from the Palace of Darkness. What kind of organization is the Palace of Darkness? Why would there be such a strange thing? And it can control people's hearts? Influence people's hearts. The Right Elder's face was ashen as his throat was filled with bitterness. Yiqing Luo shook the white jade wine flask in her hands, as she heard the sound of a few drops of wine. She tugged her lips lightly. I know instead. It will speed up your Miao tribe's destruction. Chapter 2941. Right Judge Elder sensed that Yiqing Luo's current mood was not right. He suppressed the questions he wanted to ask about the Palace of Gloomy Shadows. Miss Yi, are you drunk? If you drink too much, I'll get your friend to help you back to your room to rest first. As for other matters, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Drunk? Yiqing Luo gave a low laugh as her brows were filled with an indescribable allure. I hope that I'm drunk. Right Judge Elder was slightly stunned. Yiqing Luo had already floated down from the tree branch. Her red dress was like fire, as though she was a blazing spirit that bloomed in the night. The enchanting and resplendent brilliance was extremely bewitching. This look, no matter how one looked at it, she looked as though she was drunk. And she wasn't light. But when the Right Judge Elder saw Yiqing Luo's eyes, he wasn't able to determine if she was really drunk. That pair of charming eyes, although it was tainted with a trace of haziness, floating and sinking. But she was sober and calm. It was totally not the expression a drunk person should have. Right Judge Elder's words were stuck in his throat. Heh. Another languid laughter came out from the young lady's mouth. She lazily curled her pink lips with a hint of ridicule in her smile. Looks like I've been thinking of ways and means not to implicate the Miao tribe in the end. The Miao tribe is still implicated. Immerse? Right Judge Elder was puzzled. He was already confused by Yiqing Luo's mood today. Now hearing Yiqing Luo's baffling words, he was even more confused. Right Judge Elder, if you really want to thank me, then help me guard the Sacred Maiden Institute. Perhaps, later on, I will be able to remember how to help those guards who are tainted with evil qi to clear the evil qi in their bodies. Perhaps that might be the case. Yiqing Luo laughed softly, her voice was melodious like pearls falling on a plate. Right Judge Elder's white brows creased into a bundle. He still hadn't understood what Yiqing Luo's baffling words meant. Just at this moment, under the night sky, the extremely quiet Miao tribe suddenly exploded into a clamor. Immediately following that, the Miao tribe which was enveloped in the night sky was lit up brightly. The fire torches rippled along with the wind, flickering rays of light. Hearing the sudden clamor outside, Yizichen's eyes widened. Right Judge Elder was stunned again. He raised his head and looked towards the horizon. Those bright torches' rays had dyed half the sky red. You're just in time. Quick run. An anxious voice was heard. Following that, a figure was seen rushing over from the dark corner of the courtyard. Apparently he had snuck into this courtyard secretly. Old Zhou, what happened? As soon as the Right Judge Elder saw him, he immediately went forward to support the hurried figure. Left Judge Elder waved his hand while panting heavily as his eyes looked anxiously at Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi, follow me and leave from the Miao tribe's rear mountain. Although that road is a bit remote, it is absolutely safe. Back of the mountain? The elder on the right frowned when he heard this. What's going on? Right, Judge Elder said hurriedly, and Qing. He was Qing, said Mr. Elder. Was Mr. The right Mr. said. The elder was in. The judging elder said hurriedly with an anxious look on his face. Miss Yi, there's no time. Let's talk as we walk. Yeah, it's too late. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a smile as she gazed towards the sky, which was dyed red. Since the people from secluded Darkness Palace are here, they will not let go of any chance. No matter which path we take, it's too late. Most importantly, Zhou Xian was still in the Holy Maiden Institute. Chapter 2942. Elder's was face darkened. No. Miss Yi, why don't you go to the Saintess Yard to hide? I don't believe that those people from the Palace of Darkness would dare to barge into our Miao tribe. Secluded Darkness Palace even dared to provoke the Imperial Palace. Why would they be afraid of a Miao tribe? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. Their target is me. Could it be, just because you noticed that the guards of the Palace of Darkness are actually all corpses? The secret of being able to infect evil energy? The elder on the right clenched his fists angrily. Because of the puppets from the Palace of Darkness and the infected Miao guards. The two judging elders had been extremely dissatisfied with the Palace of Darkness for a long time. Yi Qing Luo smiled but didn't reply. The reason why the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was against her. Even she herself didn't know. Perhaps the dark forces had an irreconcilable grudge against her. Or it could be that the Nether Palace wanted to deal with Zhou Xian and she was Zhou Xian's woman. Or perhaps there were many possibilities. However, Abyss Palace's true goal was to wait until he would only know when the person behind the scenes of the Gloomy Palace appeared. Why is it suddenly so noisy? What happened? Yan Xiaoyi and the rest walked out of their rooms. Yi Qing Luo looked at those people who were walking over. Their hair was not messy. His clothes were neat and tidy without any creases. However, these clothes were the same clothes which Yi Qing Luo wore not long ago when she came to the courtyard to discuss with them about leaving the Miao tribe. That was to say, she sent her brothers back to their rooms to rest. None of them could rest in peace. They were all worried about her. Yi Qing Luo's heart warmed. Qing Luo, why are there so many torches outside? What kind of Miao ritual is this? Yan Xiaoyi looked at the sky that was dyed red, and then looked outside the perimeter wall, at the red glow that enveloped everything. Kitty seems to have smelled something weird. Sinks. Kitty Li wrinkled her nose and covered it with her hand. Zhou Xian tightened his arms around her shoulders and frowned as he looked at the sky through the high walls. The expression on his face was no longer as frivolous as before. Instead, there was a hint of solemnity. What's going on? Such a big thing happened in the Miao tribe and I didn't receive any news? As Taozi spoke, she took out the important information that Bapti had given her from her bosom and kept rummaging through it. But no matter how he searched, he could not find a single piece of information related to the Miao tribe. Gui Wu, who was walking at the back, had a solemn and cold expression on his face as he exchanged glances with Zhou Xian. Although Gui Wu did not say anything, his expression had already revealed the seriousness of the matter. Both he and Zhou Xian had grim expressions on their faces. After some time, Gui Wu slowly shifted his line of sight onto Yi Qing Luo, as he opened his mouth coldly, a very strong aura. Yeah. Yi Qing Luo naturally sensed the majestic overbearing aura outside the Miao tribe. Whereas the formidable opponent, I'm afraid it's going to be difficult to deal with. Miss Yi, I think you should follow me to the back of the mountain. Even if there are people guarding the back mountain, we can still fight our way out with our strength. Elder Zhou immediately voiced out his opinion after hearing their words. To have such a strong presence, she obviously came prepared and will definitely not give me a chance to leave. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as the cold glint reflected out was a little biting cold. Chapter 2943. The elders on the left and right looked at each other and their faces turned pale. Miss Yi, you mean there is a spy from the Palace of Darkness in the Miao tribe? Yi Qing Luo smiled without saying a word. But this smile also tacitly agreed with their guesses. Indeed, if it wasn't for an insider, why would the people of the Dark Secluded Palace choose this time to lead the Dark Secluded Palace to surround the Miao tribe? The new Saintess was not present. The former Saintess wasn't here either. The two pillars of support were gone. The people of Gloomy Palace easily incited the people of the Miao tribe. At that time she would not only have to deal with the people from the Palace of Darkness. He still had to split himself to guard against the Miao tribesmen. The right elder clenched his fists and was filled with hatred. My Miao tribe has been in the Miao tribe's territory for generations. We rarely appear in other parts of the continent and make enemies with others. I originally thought that this would ensure the simplicity of our Miao tribe's people. I didn't expect. There is no limit to human greed. Yiqing Luo opened her mouth calmly. There are two sides to everything. You thought that by restricting the Miao clansmen from leaving the Miao clan, you would be able to maintain their original intentions, but because the people they interacted with were all Miao clansmen, they don't know the loathing of the outside world, so it's easier for them to listen to other people's slanderous words, or perhaps the temptation given. When the left and right judging elders heard Yiqing Luo's words, they seemed to have suffered a blow as they staggered a few steps backwards. We must find the mole behind all of this. Let him know the consequences of betraying the Miao tribe. The right elder's voice was filled with deep sorrow and regret. In order to preserve the simplicity of the people, they specially made this suggestion. Unexpectedly, it became an opportunity for the Palace of Gloomy Darkness to make use of. The traitor who betrayed the Miao tribe and sent information to the Palace of Darkness. He would not let them off easily. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were frivolous as her face still had that lazy expression. Leave this courtyard first in case it implicates the both of you. Yiqing Luo didn't really like these two judging elders. But he didn't hate it either. At least compared to those sanctimonious Miao elders. At least they were more sincere towards the Miao tribe. The right judge elder's face turned cold. You are the Miao tribe's guest and also the saintess friend. The Palace of Secluded Darkness is looking for the Miao tribe in such a blatant manner. If I am afraid that I will be implicated and ignore you, then I am not fit to be the judge elder. Yes. What justice and fairness are we talking about? Elder Zhou clenched his fists and said with righteous indignation, It's you who allowed the Miao tribe to find a saintess who can truly be the saintess. You are the benefactor of the Miao tribe. Their gazes were firm and serious. Yiqing Luo looked at them for some time and laughed. I know your sincerity. Right, Judge Elder, if you really want to. Yiqing Luo. Come out for this, Elder. Suddenly, a burst of angry curses came from outside the courtyard. Then the gate of the courtyard was split open by a palm strike. Instantly wood splinters flew everywhere. A skinny figure dashed into the room. His mouth was still cursing and swearing. Yiqing Luo, you jinx. Hurry up and roll out for this, Elder. Did he think that by hiding here he could escape from the trouble he had caused? Come out now. Old 5. When the elder on the right saw who it was, he yelled, What are you yelling about? Shut up. The person who came, wasn't it that hot-tempered fifth elder Miao? Chapter 2944. Immediately, fifth elder Miao stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. Elder right, surely you're not thinking of shielding this jinx, right? What jinx? Don't talk nonsense. The right elder's face darkened. Fifth elder Miao pointed at the flames outside the door. He gritted his teeth and cursed. You call this nonsense? The Palace of Gloomy Darkness is already at our doorstep. The right judge furrowed his white eyebrows. When fifth elder Miao saw that he did not speak, he felt that he was in the right. On top of that, fifth elder Miao had already exposed himself in the underground tunnel. He was colluding with Miao Rongrong and had the intention of helping Miao Rongrong get the position. Miao Yi had already become a holy maiden. The things that he had done would definitely be told to Miao Yi by Yiqing Luo in revenge. At that time, it would be difficult for him to keep his position as an elder. Fifth elder Miao wouldn't think that losing his position as an elder was a mistake caused by his improper thoughts. Instead, he blamed everything on Yiqing Luo. He originally had a belly full of anger and unhappiness towards Yiqing Luo. At this moment he felt even more. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, his and Miao Rongrong's plan wouldn't have failed. After Miao Rongrong became an elder, then he would be the hero. He was Miao Rongrong's confidant. But now, everything was disrupted. He would even suffer from Miao Yi and Yiqing Luo's revenge. The more he thought about it, the deeper the hatred in the fifth elder's heart grew. The deeper it was, the more he wanted to destroy Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo knew about the things that fifth elder Miao's mind was filled with, They would definitely look at him with disdain. She really did not have the time to complain to Miao Yi. She was not in the mood to go against Elder Miao Wu. For a short-sighted and hot-tempered person like Elder Miao Wu, it was only a matter of time before he suffered a loss. There was no need for her to do it herself. He could only say that Elder Miao Wu thought too highly of him. No one knew that in Yi Qingluo's eyes, Fifth Elder Miao was not even comparable to an ant. He was not worthy of her attention at all. Fifth Elder Miao was unaware of this as he shouted in rage. Ever since this woman came to the Miao tribe, there have been various incidents happening in the Miao tribe. Our Miao tribe has never had a peaceful day. How was she not a jinx? Misfortune followed him wherever he went. If she hadn't become enemies with the emissary of the Palace of Darkness during the Saintess selection ceremony. If she had not forced the second palace master of the Palace of Darkness to kill those useless people, the guards of the Miao tribe would not have been infected. If she didn't insist on Miao Yi becoming the Saintess and offend the Palace of Darkness, the people from the Palace of Darkness wouldn't have surrounded the Miao tribe at this time. Fifth Elder Miao spat out a series of incriminating evidence. Saying that, he panted heavily as the green veins on his forehead popped out, as he pointed at Yi Qingluo in a towering rage. This woman is a demoness. He is the jinx of the Miao tribe. Elder Zhou, who had been silent all this while, said sternly, "Old Five, I thought you were just a little hot-tempered. I didn't expect you to be so narrow-minded. In your eyes do you only see these superficial things? You keep saying that the Palace of Darkness had been targeting the Miao tribe time and time again because of Miss Yi. Then have you ever thought that on such an important day for our Miao tribe, Palace of Darkness totally disregarded our Miao tribe's reputation and kept creating trouble? What do they treat our Miao tribe as?" Chapter 2945. Right Judge Elder sneered as he spoke, as though he was ridiculing Fifth Elder Miao's ignorance. That disdainful gaze swept past Fifth Elder Miao as he continued. If it wasn't for Miss Yi, those guards from Secluded Palace would not only be infected by those few Miao guards. If it wasn't for Miss Yi, those infected guards would all turn into puppets. By then, have you thought about what kind of state our Miao tribe would be in? Left Judge Elder also continued. Old Five, don't think that we don't know what happened in the underground tunnel and push all the blame onto Miss Yi. If it wasn't for Miao Rongrong's evil intentions, collaborating with Secluded Palace, we wouldn't have ended up in such a state. If Secluded Palace wants to make a fuss, they need to see if we old bones allow it or not. Right and left Judge Elders spoke one after another as their imposing manner surged. Every word and sentence forced Fifth Elder Miao to take a few steps back. Fifth Elder Miao's face flushed red as his fingers trembled as he pointed at this and that with an annoyed look. Yi Qingluo, who was blocked behind by the left and right elders, listened to the two elders arguing for her, looking at the two of them standing in front of her, that tall and straight back view. Yi Qingluo's eyes flashed past a faint sense of warmth. Most of the time respect and help were mutual. Right and left Judge Elders treated her well. She would naturally remember this kindness. The two of them at this moment still stood in front of her without any hesitation, speaking up for her. That was enough for Yi Qingluo to remember them. Yi Qingluo's pink lips curled slightly as she was about to push the two of them aside to reply. But this smile fell into Fifth Elder Miao's eyes. Fifth Elder Miao only felt that Yi Qingluo was ridiculing him, showing off that she had the help of the two elders. Immediately, Elder Miao felt as if there was a ball of anger in his head. It surged up and devoured all his rationality. The two of you have made up your mind to speak up for this jinx, haven't you? Can I take it that you're in cahoots? Yi Qingluo, you want to invade Miao tribe. Trying to make use of Miao Yi's trust towards you, to ally with old left and right, to let you invade Miao tribe legitimately, right? He was howling as his eyes turned red, and without any explanation he went up to pull Yi Qingluo. You leave with this elder. As long as we hand over a jinx like you, my Miao tribe will have peace. Yi Qingluo would never let Fifth Elder Miao bump into her. Fifth Elder Miao's hand hadn't even come close. Yi Qingluo had already moved her feet, avoiding Fifth Elder Miao's outstretched hand. Coincidentally, the left and right judges' elders quickly grabbed onto Fifth Elder Miao. Fifth Elder Miao was so infuriated that he kept on struggling as he scolded, Yi Qingluo, you slut. If you really treat Miao Yi as your friend, then for Miao Yi's sake, don't implicate my Miao tribe. You should just surrender yourself to us. Heh. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched slightly as she gave a scornful smile. A pair of long and narrow eyes curved into a faint, seductive arc. Fifth Elder Miao, if I say you're stupid, you really are. The girl's voice was filled with disdain and ridicule. Fifth Elder Miao's face flushed red from the provocation. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, wanting to pounce forward and forcefully attack. However, he was quickly held down by the elders on the left and right. Chapter 2946. Yiqing Luo's words left her mouth. Fifth Elder Miao, who was making a racket, instantly shut his mouth. The other two judging elders also looked towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo met their gazes as she smiled calmly. The answer is no. From the moment Secluded Palace set their eyes on Miao tribe, it is impossible for Miao tribe to remain unscathed. When Yiqing Luo's last sentence left her mouth, the few elders' faces turned ghastly pale at this instance. Especially Fifth Elder Miao, his face was pale and ugly as it kept on twisting. His ruthless eyes shone with a dim luster as he racked his brains to think of how to rebuke Yiqing Luo's words. Yiqing Luo didn't even take a look at Fifth Elder Miao as she walked straight towards the courtyard's entrance. Demoness, you're trying to escape. Fifth Elder Miao seemed to have found a breakthrough as he screamed in a sharp, tearing voice. He struggled as he pushed the left and right judging elders. The both of you are that demoness' accomplices. The left and right judging elders restrained Fifth Elder Miao as they watched him struggling endlessly, cursing and swearing. The two of them looked at each other. This Fifth Elder Miao's every word was directed at Yiqing Luo. And he kept on leading the tempo, trying to make them hand Yiqing Luo over to Secluded Palace. Could it be? Miao tribe's traitor, Secluded Palace's spy, was Fifth Elder Miao? This thought made the left and right judging elders' faces sunk. The gaze which they shot towards Fifth Elder Miao was filled with judgment. Whereas at this moment Yiqing Luo and the rest had already walked out of the courtyard as they rushed towards the direction of Miao tribe's entrance. Miao tribe's surroundings were brightly lit. The burning torches swayed as it drew out a long silhouette. There wasn't a single person around. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sneered as she sized up the surroundings. It looked like all the Miao tribesmen had already rushed to the entrance of Miao tribe. He had only sent Elder Miao Wu alone to the courtyard where she was staying to invite her? This was a good idea. Fifth Elder Miao was a hot-tempered person. Whereas for Yiqing Luo, after hearing that Miao tribe was surrounded, she was agitated by Fifth Elder Miao's nasty words. She made a move on Fifth Elder Miao. Then he ran away with his brothers. This also confirmed that Yiqing Luo had a guilty conscience and didn't dare to face the truth of the Palace of Seclusion. In this way, the Miao tribesmen would also feel that Secluded Palace was targeting Yiqing Luo and they, the Miao tribesmen, were innocent victims. Secluded Darkness Palace could swallow up the Miao tribe legitimately and also push the blame to Yiqing Luo, thus alienating the relationship between the Miao tribe and Yiqing Luo. As for Yiqing Luo and the Sacred Maiden's intimate relationship, as a result, the people of the Miao tribe would no longer have the respect and faith they once had for the saintess. Instead, they would be filled with resentment. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness have brains. Gui Wu, who was usually silent, also opened his mouth. It was obvious that he had seen through the plans of the Palace of Darkness. Yan Xiaoyi and Kitty Li blinked their eyes, not really understanding the meaning behind Gui Wu's words. However, their men just patted their heads and smiled mysteriously. Looks like tonight is going to be a little tricky. Yiqing Luo didn't intentionally explain as her lips curled into a smile. Master Gui Wu, you will help, right? Gui Wu lifted his eyelids as he squinted at Yiqing Luo but didn't say a word. Not rebutting meant that he had tacitly agreed. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt that she had a backer now. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo had always been a mysterious existence. Yiqing Luo couldn't tell how their abilities were. But one thing was for sure. Chapter 2947. As long as she had nothing to worry about, she could give it her all. The group hurried to the entrance of the Miao tribe. The entrance of the Miao tribe was now surrounded by Miao tribesmen. Standing right in front of the Miao tribesmen were Great Elder Miao and the rest. On seeing Yiqing Luo and the rest silhouettes, Great Elder Miao immediately went up to them. Miss Yi, you all? Why are you all? His gaze went past Yiqing Luo and the rest, looking behind them. Look for Fifth Elder Miao? Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. She didn't have any good impression of this hypocrite. Although Grand Elder Miao's face put on a worried expression, trying to show that he didn't wish for Yiqing Luo and the others to rush over to send themselves to death. That's right. I didn't ask Old Fifth to inform you, to ask you. Great Elder Miao said ambiguously on purpose. Based on what he said, it sounded like he had arranged for Elder Miao Wu to go to the courtyard to inform her so that she could seize the opportunity to escape. It was as if he was thinking of her wholeheartedly. Looking at Grand Elder Miao's hypocritical worried face, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but tugged her lips as she sneered. Let him forcefully bring me over to dedicate himself to your Miao tribe till my death? Great Elder Miao's expression stiffened and he hurriedly said, How? What happens to your Elder Miao has nothing to do with me. Yiqing Luo directly interrupted Grand Elder Miao's words. Since the Palace of Darkness's people specifically pointed out my name to look for me, then I'll come over to take a look at what tricks the Palace of Darkness is trying to play. His sonorous and forceful words deterred the surrounding noises of people pointing at him. Yiqing Luo's brows were frivolous as her charming eyes stared straight ahead, raising the torch up high, surrounding the Miao tribe, those people from secluded palace. At a glance there were at least 1,000 people. They were all disciples wearing the uniform of the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo's gaze finally fell onto the most conspicuous spot among the Palace of Darkness's disciples. It was a huge beast comparable to a dinosaur. It looked ugly and ferocious and it was impossible to tell what kind of magical beast it was. They had almost blocked the path to the Miao tribe. On the body of the magical beast, standing in front of them was a woman in a long white dress, with an ethereal aura. The woman was young and beautiful, but there was an unconcealable flirtatiousness between her brows. There was a clear sense of incongruity with his temperament and age. At this moment the woman was staring at Yiqing Luo with a venomous look. Beside the woman was a woman dressed in the attire of the Palace of Darkness. Her face was also filled with hatred, and there was an arrogant and proud smile in her eyes. After looking at the faces of the two women, Yiqing Luo scoffed in disdain. These two people were not strangers. It was Plum who had been humiliated under Yiqing Luo's hands, and the so-called envoy from secluded palace Yan Zhenfei. These two people had forgotten the pain after the scar had healed. Here to stir up trouble again? Yiqing Luo was staring intently at that huge magical beast as she was still considering if her Shiju's tiny body was able to take on that dinosaur-like magical beast's devastation. Suddenly, a cautious and tentative voice rang in her ears. Miss Yi. Yiqing Luo turned back and met with Fourth Elder Miao's slightly flustered expression. Chapter 2948. Hearing this, First Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao immediately shifted their gazes over. Fourth Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly, his face filled with caution. Ever since the Saintess accepted the inheritance yesterday, she has not shown herself. If it was in the past we wouldn't have said anything if she didn't show herself, but now, after all, she is the holy lady of the Miao tribe and the future tribe leader of the Miao tribe. She must bear this responsibility. After Fourth Elder Miao finished his words, he carefully took a look at Yiqing Luo's expression. Seeing Yiqing Luo's calm expression, he continued, If Miss Yi knows where Sacred Maiden is, you must tell us. At least at this time with Saintess present she can appease the hearts of the Miao tribe. My motive for coming to the Miao tribe is very simple and I believe that previously Miao Rongrong should have mentioned it to you. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she met Fourth Elder Miao's eyes calmly. I need the strongest person in the Miao tribe to do something for me. After Yi received the inheritance of the Gu King, she went to do it for me. She can't come back for now. Yiqing Luo's tone was extremely calm. Fourth Elder Miao's eyes flickered a few times, unable to differentiate the truth in Yiqing Luo's words. When Grand Elder Miao heard Yiqing Luo's words, he sighed. Since that's the case, then there's no other way. After all, you don't know that secluded palace's people will surround the Miao tribe tonight. Although his words sounded as if he was speaking up for Miao Yi, it was not a big deal. But when he listened carefully, this was obviously drawing hatred for Yiqing Luo. After hearing Great Elder Miao's words, the Miao tribesmen were surrounded by the Palace of Darkness disciples and their fates were unknown. He would never understand Miao Yi's departure. Instead, he would constantly complain in his heart. No matter what the reason is. When the Miao tribe was in trouble, as the holy maiden of the Miao tribe, she had to be there. However, the holy maiden had abandoned the Miao tribe for the sake of her so-called friend. Was she still a qualified holy maiden of the Miao tribe? In the holy maiden's heart, only that so-called friend was the most important. Hence, after this thought was born in the hearts of the Miao clansmen, all their fury would be directed onto Yiqing Luo. Great Elder Miao, your words. Yan Shaoyi was instantly infuriated. Her face turned black as she pointed at Great Elder Miao and was about to scold him. Before he could finish howling, he was stopped by Yiqing Luo. A mere Miao tribe is not worthy of my attention. Yiqing Luo was extremely arrogant as her brows were mixed with faint ridicule. Let's go take a look at the secluded palace. Yiqing Luo had long seen through Grand Elder Miao's tricks. But she was too lazy to care. To her, the Miao tribesmen were just outsiders. She didn't care how he thought about her, and she didn't want to care either. What she needed to do now was to stand on the side of Miao Yi's friend and protect the Miao tribe from being annihilated. That was enough. Yiqing Luo and the rest didn't even bother to take a look at the Miao tribe's elders as they directly walked towards the direction of that huge magical beast. Coincidentally, after fourth Elder Miao finished his question at the instance when Yiqing Luo and the rest left, he slowly raised his head. His vision seemed as though it was directed towards Yiqing Luo and the rest's backs. But if one took a closer look, that vision went past Yiqing Luo and the rest, staring straight at those people from the secluded palace. Finally, his vision seemed to have met with someone. Chapter 2949. Under the gaze of the Miao clansmen and the disciples of the Dark Abyss Palace, Yiqing Luo and the rest slowly walked over. Mei viciously looked down at Yiqing Luo from above, as if she was standing on a higher position and had many backers, so there was a kind of unbridled complacency. Yiqing Luo, you've got guts. Mei's sharp voice was filled with jealousy. Come to think of it, you also know that the Miao tribe suffered such an undeserved disaster because of you, so you obediently came out to die? What else can she do besides throwing her life away? Yan Zhenfei was also full of hatred. Even the veil could not conceal the viciousness on her face. Could it be that she still wants to rely on the Miao tribe to avoid our condemnation? Mei covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly. Because of her, the Miao tribe has suffered such an undeserved calamity and is facing the danger of being devoured by our palace of Yu. Why would we help her? Both of their voices were deliberately spread out with their xianqi. Almost everyone at the entrance of the Miao tribe could hear it clearly. Immediately, these two people's words aroused the hatred in the hearts of countless Miao clansmen. Facing the encirclement of more than 1,000 people from the Palace of Abyss. In addition, there was an extremely ferocious-looking magical beast. These Miao tribesmen had personally witnessed the strength of the Palace of Darkness guards yesterday. If they resisted, it was like striking a rock with an egg. They were all extremely worried and frightened. They were afraid that the Palace of Darkness would destroy the Miao tribe and they would not be able to fight back. Now, under such a worrying and fearful situation, the people from secluded Darkness Palace had pointed out that their Miao tribe was totally implicated. It was entirely because of Yiqing Luo that they were surrounded by secluded Darkness Palace. In his heart, a belly full of hatred towards Yiqing Luo surged up. Immediately, the Miao tribesmen who did not even dare to let out a fart under the suppression of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. At this moment, all of them were shouting for Yiqing Luo to get out of the Miao tribe. For a moment, the entire entrance of the Miao tribe was in an uproar. Mei and Yan Shaoyi looked at each other and smiled. She felt that with just a few words she was able to stir up so many people, causing them to burst out with complaints towards Yiqing Luo. They felt extremely proud of themselves. Gossip had always been the sharpest weapon. Once a person was corroded by rumors and it became more and more intense, it could completely crush a person into utter disarray. They wanted to make use of the Miao clansmen to make Yiqing Luo feel the pressure from the rumors. But they seemed to have miscalculated. Facing thousands of people's accusations and curses, Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change at all. Even the group of people behind her were calm and did not seem to be able to stir up any waves. The Miao tribesmen's reprimand was like a punch hitting cotton, soft and soft. It made them feel suffocated in their chests and they couldn't get it out no matter what. And the group of them didn't seem to care at all, completely unaffected by the numerous criticisms of the Miao tribesmen. This caused Mei and Yan Zhenfei's expressions to freeze bit by bit. Useless trash. A cold shout came from behind the two of them. Their faces paled and they immediately bowed and nodded respectfully. Second Palace Master. Behind the two of them, a slim figure slowly walked over. That person was covered by a black veil, revealing only a pair of beautiful fox-like eyes. Chapter 2950. This sentence was filled with a dignified roar. Instantly, it made those noisy Miao tribesmen quieten down. The entire Miao tribe's entrance was within 100 miles radius. Only the rustling sound of the wind blowing past the trees could be heard. The air in the entire space seemed to have condensed into a layer of frost. All the Miao tribesmen felt their bodies shivering slightly from the bottom of their feet to the top of their heads, surging with traces of chilliness. Second Palace Lord stood on that huge magical beast's head. Her posture was extremely high. Her bewitching cold eyes had turned into a sharp blade, ruthlessly slicing Yiqing Luo. However, everyone's hearts were filled with anxiety and fear, while their nerves were stretched taut. Meeting with Second Palace Lord's icy cold gaze, Yiqing Luo's face didn't show any signs of panic, not even a little bit of fear. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her slender fingers gently brushed past her lower jaw, curling it over her shoulder, a wisp of fine black hair twined around her fingertips. Following that, her pink lips curled up into a sweet smile. That devastatingly beautiful face gave off a suffocating charm, which was enough to charm all living beings. Every action, every smile and every frown. As compared to the half-concealed Second Palace Lord, she was obviously more dazzling. Second Palace Lord's eyes were suffused with a poisonous chill. She coldly swept past Yiqing Luo's face, which made one want to destroy it as she gritted her teeth and gave a cold harumph. Yiqing Luo, do you think that just by casually flirting someone will save you? Or will the people from the Palace of Darkness show mercy? What a pity our Palace of Darkness has no lack of women. Jealousy caused Second Palace Lord's fox-like eyes to be tainted with a malicious glint. Even her voice became sharp and unpleasant. This Palace Lord doesn't have the mood to waste time with you here. If you don't surrender, this Palace Lord will give the order to attack and occupy the Miao tribe. Giggle giggle. A low laughter spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips. The young lady covered her mouth, her eyebrows curved into a crescent, bewitching like a blooming rose, making one unable to shift their gaze away. I also have to say, Second Palace Lord, it's such a pity. The girl's voice was unique and sweet, like pearls falling on a plate, pleasing to the ear to the extreme. Whatever the Palace of Darkness does to the Miao tribe has nothing to do with me. The people of the Miao tribe have nothing to do with me. I don't care if you want to kill or torture them. Yiqing Luo's words were very light and her calm voice didn't reveal any excess emotions. Yiqing Luo's sentence had indeed aroused the Miao clansmen's endless fury. Yiqing Luo, do you have to be so shameless? If you hadn't implicated the Miao tribe, how would our Miao tribe have suffered such an undeserved calamity? You still dare to say that it has nothing to do with us? It's all your fault. You are the one who harmed the Miao tribe. Shouldn't you bear this responsibility? How dare you say that you treat the Saintess as a friend? If you really treat the Saintess as a friend, then you should stand up and sacrifice yourself to protect the Miao tribe. You want to escape by yourself and let us pay with our lives for the grudge between you and the Palace of Darkness? Don't you dare. Numerous grievances as well as exploding anger almost overturned the Miao tribe. The Miao clansmen's fear towards death made them speak without thinking. Towards all the abuse and questioning, Yiqing Luo totally didn't treat it as anything, as though she turned a deaf ear to it, unmoved. Chapter 2951. Motive. Second Palace Mistress chuckled as she mumbled this word. That pair of seductive eyes curved even more. My motive is only you. Her voice wasn't considered soft. It drifted melodiously above the entire Miao tribe entrance. Yiqing Luo, take a good look at this face of mine. Second Palace Mistress leapt upwards and in a blink of an eye, an afterimage flashed past and she had already appeared 2 steps away from Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo didn't move at all. What came towards her was Second Palace Mistress's powerful profound energy. Like a bone-cutting sharp blade, it slashed towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly, but she didn't intentionally evade. Just as this burst of profound energy was about to land on Yiqing Luo's face, Yiqing Luo's eyelashes suddenly drew a silhouette of flowing light. Like a ripple on water, layer after layer of ripples appeared in mid-air. Second Palace Mistress's profound energy. It hit on that ripple. Instantly it turned into nothingness. The surrounding violent aura was like a whirlwind, lingering between the two of them. Like the tumbling huge waves in the vast sea, constantly stirring up the most ferocious whirlwind. In this whirlwind, the two of them who stood facing each other had no change in their expressions. Second Palace Mistress's eyes were seductive, but revealed an obvious murderous intent. She sneered as she used her hand to slowly remove the black veil which was covering her face, revealing that face which Yiqing Luo was extremely familiar with. Second Palace Mistress's red lips curled as her slender fingers caressed that smooth fair face bit by bit as she asked with a low laugh, "Yiqing Luo, do you still recognize me?" This face Yiqing Luo had coincidentally taken a look at it before. At that time her reaction was that she felt that she had seen wrongly. But now this face was revealed in front of her without any concealment. This confirmed that she had not seen wrongly right from the start. This Second Palace Mistress's face was Xianxia's. That face which was exactly the same as Xian without any difference. Especially when he heard the Second Palace Master's question. For a moment Yiqing Luo really thought that the person in front of her was the same Xian who had been tortured into a meat patty by her when the dark forces invaded the West continent. However, it was only for a moment. Yiqing Luo immediately rejected her own thoughts. Because although the person in front of him had the exact same face as Xian, but whether it was the tone of voice or the temperament, it was totally not the aura that a woman like Xian could have. Moreover, according to the first time he fought with the Deputy Palace Master during the Holy Maiden selection ceremony of the Miao tribe, the Second Palace Master didn't know her at all. And his tone was completely different. "What? Seeing that sister is still alive, shouldn't you be a little happier?" Second Palace Mistress curled her red lips, fully releasing the charm of Xian's face. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she suddenly had another guess in her mind. She pondered for a moment, then stared at the Vice Palace Master and smiled tentatively. "Is that so? If you really are my good sister, I will naturally be happy." Sure enough, when he heard her words, the Assistant Palace Master's expression changed slightly. That pair of seductive beautiful eyes flickered a few times. Yiqing Luo was even more certain of her own thoughts as she used her hand to support her lower jaw, putting on an astonished look. "I've heard that the dark forces have a certain sacred technique which looks exactly the same as my good sister. Seeing it today, it's indeed so.